So far, we have been discussing what research shows to be 4 essential qualities that today's students need to thrive and to succeed. But then the question becomes, how do we deliver those in a way that makes sense to today's student? Well, in order to really unpack that, we've come up with this term called EPIC. Now, what we don't mean is that they're just going on wild adventures or reading the works of Homer. It's really just an acronym that help us really remember how to best engage with the students that we lead. So the E in EPIC reminds me that they're experiential, they're participatory, they're image-rich, and they're connected. So let's look at this together. The E in EPIC tells me they're experiential. I want you to think of it like a lab versus a lecture. You know, in a lecture, students are sitting, taking notes, the instructor is the only one talking, and it's all about downloading information. A lab, on the other hand, it's all about rolling your sleeves up, getting your hands dirty, working, downloading and uploading. And in that process, and while, engaging multiple senses, learning takes place. The reality is, students are looking not for a sage on the stage with information, but a guide on the side who can provide an experience to help them grow. A great example of this is from the classic football movie, Remember the Titans. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's a true story about T.C. Williams High School in 1971 in Alexandria, Virginia. Coach Herman Boone, played by Denzel Washington, took over leading this program right after the end of segregation. So you can imagine some of the challenges that they were facing in that environment. So one thing he did is he actually woke up the team early in the morning. They went on this long jog and they ended up in Gettysburg. And in that setting, in that sacred, somber setting, Coach Boone began to unpack the blood that was spilled in that field. And he even challenged them, listen to the voices, like feel their souls. He was providing this rich experience to help them understand, hey, this whole challenge of teamwork and brotherhood, it's real and people have laid their lives on the line for it. So it's an incredible example of an epic leader even before we had the term epic. The P in epic reminds me that they are participatory. Now, some of you remember when American Idol came on the scene, that was the first time that audience participation actually impacted the results of a singing show. And it was wildly successful. And one of the reasons is when you think about this, students own what they help create. They long to own what they help create, and by providing an opportunity to participate, what we've seen is engagement increases. I think of a great example when we were with the University of Texas football team, when Mac Brown was still there. After unpacking these principles, they decided to implement a new approach. He gathered together their leadership team, maybe you caught what's going on there, gathered the leadership team and had them contribute on the practice plan to come up with some ideas. What drills do you want to see? How do we need to improve? And it was a great opportunity for those leaders to participate in the development of their team. So my question is, can you set aside time to provide an experience for your students to engage with a principal? And can you set aside time away from the X's and O's to invite some participation? Okay? The I in EPIC reminds me that they are image-rich. These students have grown up in a world of images. And you know as well as I do, we've heard it since we were toddlers, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But in fact, research shows that it's worth way more than that, right? Our human brain processes information some 60,000 times faster than text, which is why most of the information we retain is visual and why you hear people say, I never forget a face. So if we can leverage the power of images to anchor whatever principle that we're trying to communicate, it will help our learning and our experience in that moment. So a great example is this. I was with one Division I football team. One year we were unpacking EPIC, and then I went back the next year, and one of the coaches grabbed me. He was so excited. He said, Sterling, I got to tell you, since you were here, we took this image thing seriously. I gathered our leadership team. You hear that again. I gathered our leadership team. We came up with some behaviors that we wanted the defense to emulate. And not just behaviors, but we linked it with an image. And they came up with a powerful one. It was a lion chasing a gazelle. right? That we wanted to have this relentless pursuit, and we wanted to have that mentality of a lion. Can you imagine the power of being in a locker room where we're talking about that kind of imagery and how we're chasing down that ball, right? Can we leverage that power of an image to anchor the principles that we're trying to communicate? And lastly, the C in EPIC reminds me that they are connected. Now, sociologists would tell you that they're the most connected generation in history virtually, right? One of the challenges is not that they're connecting, but it's the way that they're connecting, right? And so my challenge with this is, can we set aside time to provide opportunities to connect? We've done some research at Growing Leaders, and what we've seen is when students have genuine connection with their leaders, a personal connection, and they have opportunity to create those connections with each other, satisfaction increases and performance improves. And I think about in this context, you know, the summer of 2020 was incredibly challenging in a lot of different ways, right? We had COVID, we had quarantining, we had social unrest and all the issues surrounding social injustice. One Division I college coach had an opportunity to speak with him, and we were talking about this idea. And he said, rather than just go out there and get some extra swings in the middle of that crazy summer, gathered the team together in the locker room, and they said, we're going to make it a priority to connect hearts and want to listen to one another and practice empathy. While some teams were out there practicing more swings, this coach was practicing emotional intelligence and providing opportunity to connect. And I think it paid off because they went on to win the conference championship and went pretty deep in the Women's College World Series. What am I saying? Rather than just X's and O's, getting more practice reps in, can we build in time in our schedule to provide some genuine connections with each other and with those that we lead? So, having said all of that, my challenge for you is this. How epic are you? How epic are you? And as you wrestle with and think about these principles in your own particular style, I want to just challenge you to adopt them in your own context, in your own way. And I promise you, what you'll see is your leadership and the leadership of those you lead go to another level.